Good afternoon and welcome to the Stratus Admissions Counseling Beat the GMAT webinar. Today we're going to be talking about MBA Strategy 101, why MBA and why now. As we're waiting for a few more people to join, I'm going to do a couple of quick polls just to get a sense of who is in our audience today. First off, can you let me know where you are located? Where in the world are you sitting today? Are you in the US? East of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi, in Asia, somewhere else in the world. If you've got some other people, I'm always curious as to where you other people are in the world. So if you are answering other, chat me where you are, because I want to know. So I appreciate you guys taking this poll. Lots of folks in Asia, but about 50% of our people are in Asia, and then the other half are split evenly across the east of the US, west of the US, and then other. So thank you for answering that question. I'm going to close out that poll. And one other question, just give me a sense of when are you thinking about starting an MBA? Are you thinking about starting this year? Some of you may have already applied or be applying in round 3. Are you planning to apply this fall to start a program in 2018? Or not sure. So appreciate you guys taking the time that if you are applying this fall to start in 2018, now is a great time to be thinking about why MBA, why now? And that's kind of where we are. I've got no one who is applying now. About 80% are planning to start in 2018. And then the others kind of evenly split between 2019, and I'm really not sure yet. So thank you very much for your answers there. I'm going to close out that poll. I have a few more that I may do throughout the presentation. So with that, let's get started here. My name is Susan Cera, and I am the Director of MBA Admissions Counseling at Stratus. I did my undergrad at Dartmouth College, where I studied economics and computer science. After that, I worked for several years in consulting before returning to school to get my MBA from Duke University's Fuqua School of Business. After graduating from Fuqua, I worked in the software space and the internet space as a product manager, kind of bridging the gap between the business and the technical side, understanding what the customer needs were and translating those into requirements for the technology folks. And after doing that for about 10 years or so, I took a break from that kind of high pressure career and focused on my family. And during that time, I stepped into a role at Duke's Business School, again, where I spent about a decade reading applications. And it was during this time where I probably read close to 10,000 essays, where I realized that in my heart, I knew that a lot of the candidates whose applications I was reading I knew in my heart they were stronger than what they were presenting through their applications. And it's for that reason that I made the switch from being on admissions committee to working at Stratus, where I can help our clients to really present their best self, to understand what it is that admissions committee is looking for and address that through their applications, not just their essays, but also in working with their recommenders as well as in their interviews. So a little bit about Stratus. We are a full-service admissions counseling firm. We've been around for a little more than a decade, and each year we work with hundreds of MBA candidates, and every year our clients get accepted to every one of the top programs. Thrilled in the last couple of weeks to see a lot of admits rolling in for Harvard, for Stanford, Wharton in the last week, Kellogg, Booth, Columbia. So every year we're placing a lot of candidates into those programs. We also have really high ratings on sites like Beat the GMAT, as well as Google and Yelp. We've got 25 straight 5-star reviews on Google+, so that kind of speaks to the value that we add to our clients. And right below there, you see a quote that was captured from a site that offers a place to review services like ours, the best money you will ever spend. It's really is an investment to go back to business school, and you want to make sure that you're doing it right. We have been featured experts in the media, in publications such as the Financial Times, Forbes, and U.S. News and World Report. And a little bit about what makes Stratus different. We use a team-based approach rather than having our clients work with just one counselor. We put together a great team behind you. You are paired with a primary counselor who's with you throughout the entire process of working on applications. At key points in the process, we bring in a senior strategist who's an extra set of eyes, super qualified, who will go through your strategy, look at your outlines, and ensure that you're on track to present your best self through the process. When your applications are just about ready to go, we send your essays off for what we refer to as a school-specific read. Our team has MBAs who have attended virtually all of the top 20 programs. So if you're perhaps paired with a primary counselor who went to Wharton and you're applying to Harvard, Columbia, Booth, and Stanford, when your essays are ready for each of those 4 schools, they would be sent to a counselor who's very familiar with those programs. So your Harvard essays would go to one of our Harvard counselors for review, and you get specific feedback on the content and the tone of that Harvard essay, independent of all the work you've done with your counselor. So it's a great way to kind of replicate what admissions committee would look like and how they would respond to your application. Another thing that's very unique about us is that we offer a 4-school guarantee. So if you work with us on 4 or more schools and are not admitted to any of those, we will work with you on the same number of schools, either in the next round or in the next admission season for no incremental charge. And what we really focus on is helping to draw out your unique story, your compelling narrative. So let's get to the meat of this. We're going to talk today about the quintessential MBA question when you are applying to business school is why an MBA? So another quick poll here. Why do you want to get an MBA? There are lots of reasons, and some of them are not on this list. I only had 5 spots. With this in mind, I appreciate you guys responding. Interesting, we've got 2 almost evenly balanced responses here. So about half of you guys want an MBA for a career change or pivot, and the other half to develop new skills and knowledge. So great, no one's mom's telling them to go get an MBA as perhaps your mom did when you were thinking about college. So let me close out that poll. Appreciate your responses. So yes, it is the quintessential question. It may not be explicitly asked in an essay question, but I can guarantee you when you get to an interview, if you get to that stage, you will be asked why MBA, and you need to give an answer beyond, I want a career change. You know, you might want an MBA to enhance your career or to move your career to the next level, to make that career pivot, perhaps. Transition from a consulting job to an industry job, or an industry job to a consulting job. You might want to change careers entirely, and yeah, that's probably a good reason to get an MBA. You might want to make more money. It's well documented that an MBA is a great investment. It takes a couple of years to pay itself off, but definitely a good reason for getting an MBA. I didn't put this on perhaps the reasons why you want to get an MBA, but I hear this a lot from prospects. They want the credential. They want the name on their resume. And in some instances, it's because they want to trade up from a perceived weaker undergrad education to have a bit better pedigree on their application, on their resume moving forward. Why MBA? Well, my colleagues are doing it. Kind of everyone else is leaving my company to go get an MBA, so I should do it too. A reason why you might do it, but not something that admissions committee wants to hear. And similarly, your rotation program is over, or perhaps you were in a 3-year analyst position and your time is up and you're really not sure what to do, so why not get an MBA? While these are all kind of background reasons, why you might want to get an MBA. These are not what admissions committee wants to hear when they're asking the question of why MBA. So let's think about what it is that they are looking for. So consider, if you will, the mission of the schools that you might be considering. For example, Stanford, a great program. If you're applying to Stanford, one of their essays this year is why Stanford? Okay, you can't say why Stanford, I want the name on my resume. That's not the right answer to that question. So what is important to Stanford? Here are kind of the three things that are super important to Stanford that you need to keep in mind if it's a school that you're considering. Is they want to bring in students who will change people, change organizations, and change the world. So it's someone who's going to drive change. And if the only change you want to make is to have a new school on your resume or a career change, and there's not anything behind it, admissions committee is going to see right through that. Across the bay at Berkeley Haas, they have kind of some other things that they're looking for. They want students who are going to question the status quo, who aren't going to just take things as they come at them, but really ask why things are the way they are, and could they be different? They want people who are confident who display confidence without attitude. So they don't want people who are cocky. They want people who are self-assured, but do it in a way that it's comfortable to others. And speaking of others, Berkeley is looking for people who go beyond themselves. They're not just centered on their own career or their own salary. They go beyond themselves and want to make an impact on the people they work with, the organizations they work with, and even beyond that. And the final kind of piece to the Berkeley puzzle is they want folks who are students always. That means they're always learning. They want to grow. As Tassie, you said, you want to develop new skills and knowledge. Berkeley might be a school you consider because you are looking to make that growth. An MBA really is, at a top school, a transformational experience. It's 2 years where you really get to focus on developing, the skills, the knowledge, the relationships you need to move your career forward. And through that, you transform yourself, you engage with others. It's a very reflective time. And in order to get into these programs, you kind of need to do that in advance as well. So with that in mind, what we encourage you to do to find out the answer to why MBA, specific to you, beyond those, I want a new job, I want a different career, do some self-reflection. And we typically spend 3 to 6 weeks up front with our clients doing a method that we have found works. It was just one reason behind our 4-school guarantee. A lot of self-reflection and introspection. Think about what really motivates you. We encourage our clients to think about times in their life where they really feel that they are in their element. What are the landmark experiences that define who you are and what's important to you? It might be an example of solving a problem and bringing people together who had different resources to put on a problem, and you being able to bring that team together to solve a problem. And that's what's important to you, and that motivates you, and that's why you want to take a bigger role in a company. So beyond what really motivates you, what is your dream post-MBA role? And this is something I ask my clients to do, is go out and find a job posting for that dream job that you would want to have. And from that, you can work backwards to, why do you need an MBA? Perhaps there are skills that are required for this job that you don't have right now. And an MBA will provide an opportunity for you to develop those skills, both in the classroom and in outside activities. What are your career aspirations? Beyond that short-term goal that's maybe 4 years out for you now if you're thinking about applying this year, long-term, Where do you see yourself? Are you an entrepreneur? Do you see yourself starting something yourself or with a group of people that you maybe meet during business school? Or are you someone who wants to jump into a company that's growing and grow with that company, or work for an established company and move your way up to be perhaps the chief marketing officer or the chief financial officer? Where do you see yourself long term? And again, how does that MBA set you on track to reach those career aspirations? And perhaps more importantly, what change do you want to affect? Again, reflecting back on the Stanford trifecta of change, of do you want to change yourself? Do you want to change others? How do you want to change organizations? How do you want to change the world? What positive impact will you make coming out of an MBA program? So these are all things that we really encourage our clients to think about, reflect on. Ask yourself these questions. Ask perhaps your friends, your colleagues, your family, how do they view you? What do they see as being your strengths? These are the building blocks for being able to put together a personal story for an MBA application. And I actually found this quote in a blog, and I think it's really apropos because I was working on this slide deck and stumbled across this. And it says, it's written by a first year in business school. Your why is your fuel when you need pushing, and your nourishment when you've forgotten to eat because you've been so busy. So spend a lot of time focusing on your why. Learn how to talk about it succinctly, at length, and in passing. So, business school is really 2 super fast years where you're just constantly learning. And if you don't know why you are there, you may be doing the wrong thing. So it's important that you can articulate that why through the admissions process so you can get a seat in the right program for you so that you can go ahead and reach your goals. So, oops, I'm going the wrong direction here. So what you do after you kind of create that why is you need to build a story or a compelling narrative around your why you want an MBA. And what exactly does that mean? That means being able to say, what is your short-term goal? What is that dream job coming out of business school? Is it to join a rotational program in a pharmaceutical company? Is it to launch your own company? Is it to join an investment management firm? What is that dream job? And once you know where you want to go, then you can start to connect the dots from what you've already accomplished to date through an MBA to get yourself to that short-term goal. So how has your experience to date prepared you to then reach that long-term goal? Perhaps you've developed a bunch of analytical skills as a financial analyst or as a consultant. But there's more that you need to learn, and so through an MBA, you might learn about all the different functions and how they work together, because perhaps you have been very focused in one particular area. You need to know how the work that you've done so far, both in your job, through your education, as well as through extracurricular activities, has set you up for success through an MBA program. And from that, you can then draw out, what do you need from an MBA? So what knowledge do you need to develop? Perhaps if you want to go into a new role in the healthcare sector, maybe you need curriculum that's specific to healthcare. But in addition to that curriculum that's specific to healthcare, you may need to learn best practices across other industries that could possibly be applied to healthcare. And that's the beauty of the core curriculum in an MBA, is that exposure to cross-functional classes. And that exposure in an environment where you're surrounded by people who have entirely different backgrounds from yourself. So you're learning with and from your peers. So also, what else do you need from an MBA? Are there particular skills that you need to develop? Perhaps you want to manage an organization. What are the leadership skills that you might develop through an MBA? It might be giving and receiving feedback from your peers, your seniors and your juniors. It might be negotiation skills. It might be how to structure an organization. If you want to become an entrepreneur, perhaps there are skills that you would develop through some entrepreneurial classes, perhaps through a business plan competition. Lots of different ways to develop your skills. And one of the beautiful things about MBA programs is that in addition to the classroom learning, virtually all schools have outside activities where you can test the knowledge and the skills that you have developed through your classroom experience in a low-risk environment by taking a leadership role, perhaps in a club, or participating in a case competition. These are great ways to continue to develop your skills and your knowledge during your time in an MBA program. And they also provide great opportunities to develop relationships. For example, many schools offer what they refer to as treks, so kind of career-focused trips during spring break or over the winter holidays or break, where perhaps you're in the energy industry and you have a group of people who are interested in the energy industry who all head to Houston for a few days and visit a number of companies. Through trips like this, you're able to develop relationships not just with your peers from business school, but also with industry leaders who may be folks who you can tap into through your network moving forward in order to move towards your career goals. Similarly, if you are part of, say, private equity and venture capital club at a school, your club might host a big conference in which you bring in industry professionals to sit on a series of different panels on different areas of private equity or venture capital. These are great opportunities if you become an organizer to test your negotiation skills, to test your organizational skills. Take a role bringing in people to be on a panel, and you will then be reaching out to industry professionals who perhaps you get to host when they come on campus to be part of a conference or a speaker series. Again, you're developing those relationships that will serve you well in the long term. Beyond what you need from an MBA, one thing that admissions committees are looking for is, what do you bring to an MBA program? So what unique experiences have you had that inform your perspectives on perhaps a particular industry? So I've worked with a number of clients who are in the energy industry, some of them in the oil and gas industry, others in clean energy. Although these individuals are all in the energy industry, they bring very different perspectives and unique experiences to the program that they can share both in class as well as outside of class. And it's through those contributions and sharing of knowledge that you really create a learning environment and a learning community in which all of you and your classmates can grow. So that is kind of it on the why MBA. If you have any questions, I forgot to say this up front, feel free to put them in. We will do a Q&A at the end, but if there are questions that are specific to where I am in the presentation, I'm glad to answer them in real time if they align. So let's see about doing another poll here. As we move forward, I'm going to be talking about why now. So here's a poll for you guys. Have you taken the GMAT or the GRE? This is one component of putting together an application, but kind of a very important one because it very much drives the rankings. And until you know where your score is, you really don't have a great sense of what schools you will be competitive at. So for the small number of you, less than 10%, who say, yes, I'm done, congratulations, that's awesome, thrilled for you. We've got basically everyone else, almost 90% of you, more than 90% who have not taken it yet, or have taken, about a third of you have taken the GMAT but plan to retake. So again, why now? Is this the right time? Once you kind of settle into having a job and having an income, the idea of leaving that stable job and going back to school, it's an entirely different feeling and a different process than perhaps when you were applying to college, where it's just like, oh, I've never had a job. Like, I go to college and that's the next thing I do. Whereas applying to business school, you want to be in that right place in your life for attending school. So here are some things you should be thinking about in terms of the why now. The first is, are you prepared to handle the academic rigor of the program? So I didn't have a chance to ask kind of what your academic backgrounds are, and maybe you're engineers, maybe you were math majors. If you happen to be someone who studied liberal arts and it's been maybe since your junior or senior year in high school since you've taken a math class, it might be time for you to brush up on some of the quantitative skills that are really important in a business school program. So make sure that you're ready to handle that academic rigor. In terms of how admissions committees assess those, one thing is they're going to look at your GMAT or your GRE score. Specifically, they're going to look at the quant component. And if that is not kind of in the 75, 80% or above, you might want to be finding a different way to demonstrate that you're ready to handle the quantitative rigor of a program. The next thing is what I refer to as the Goldilocks work experience. Now, actually, we'll do a poll here while I talk, is the last of the polls, which is, how many years work experience do you have? In terms of Goldilocks work experience, you don't want to have too little work experience, because if you only have a year or two, chances are you may not have as much to share and bring to a program as someone who has more years of work experience. If you have 10 years of work experience, you might just not fit in the program, where the average is 4 or 5 years. And that's kind of the sweet spot for business school, is people who have 4 to 5 years of work experience at the program start. The 80% range is about 3 years to 8 years. So if you're outside of that 80% range, either on the low end or on the high end, you'll probably have to do a little bit more work in explaining why now is the right time for you to get an MBA. So thanks for doing this poll. You guys are pretty much all in the sweet spot. You have about 5% who have less than 2 years work experience, and hopefully that's the people who are applying in 2019 or perhaps beyond that. And then we're kind of equally spaced across 3 to 4 years work, 5 to 6 years work, and more than 7 years work. About 30, 30, 30 across all those. So thank you guys for answering that poll. And again, as I said, admissions committee is going to look at this not just for the years of work experience, but for what you've accomplished. So if you happen to be someone who has just 3 years work experience, but you've been promoted ahead of your peers, and you're at a place where now might be the right time for you. It might not. You might have spent 3 years in investment banking, and there are people who are applying to business school who you're competing against who perhaps have 5 years of work experience, but they did 3 years in investment banking and then went and worked in private equity for 2 years, or they worked on the industry side for 2 years, and they were able to round out their skills and perhaps go deep on a particular industry, and they're going to be more competitive than you because you just have those 3 years in investment banking. So you want to make sure that you have the right amount of work experience. You want to demonstrate that you have emerging leadership skills. This can be demonstrated either in the workplace or through outside community service. You need to be in a position where you can grow as a leader. Leadership and teamwork are very key to what many business schools are looking for. If you have only been an individual contributor up until this point in your career, look for opportunities to develop your leadership skills, either perhaps as a subject matter expert within your company, or perhaps through some community involvement outside of the workplace. The next thing that you want to make sure you're clear on is that you have achievable goals. So I can't tell you how many applications I read during my time in admissions where I was reading applications from people who had a background in either IT or software engineering, and they said they wanted to go and work for a big 3 consulting firm or for a top investment bank. Those goals just are not achievable, and these individuals did not do a very good job connecting the dots from their experience to date through an MBA program to that post-MBA goal. Achievable goals are incredibly important. I can't tell you how many applications just were thrown straight into the ding pile because the goals that someone was stating were so unrealistic. They thought that just because they had a 770 GMAT, they would be able to get a job at McKinsey. Not the case. Another piece of this being the right time is, are you going to get support from recommenders? Most schools are going to want to have a recommendation from your current supervisor. It's completely understood if you are in a position where perhaps your job would be in jeopardy if you were to let your manager know, but you're going to need to find 2 people who are going to stand up, go to bat for you, and say that you are hopefully the best in your peer group, if not the best junior analyst or financial analyst or marketing manager that this particular manager has seen in their 20 or 30-year career. If you are to kind of throw out a trial balloon with your manager and they roll their eyes and they look at you like, why the heck would you want to get an MBA? This may not be the time for you to get an MBA. So I do have one question here from Matthew. Is the GMAT or the GPA more important in the holistic review at most programs? That's a great question, Matthew. In my experience, they are kind of evenly balanced. Both of them drive rankings. You know, if you look at any of the rankings, they all publish, an average GMAT score and an average GPA. At this point, for all of you, I'm presuming you've finished undergrad, your GPA is what it is. There's absolutely nothing you can do to change it. So stop worrying about that. And, if you happen to have a softer GPA, you really need to knock it out of the park on your GMAT. If you have a great GPA, but perhaps you're, a French literature major and your GMAT isn't super strong, especially on the quant side, this is where you might want to look into taking some extra classes to demonstrate that you're ready for that rigor, especially on the quantitative side. So hopefully I answered your question, Matthew. If not, there'll be an email address at the end. Feel free to reach out and I can speak to you personally on what your situation is. All right, moving forward. Beyond the why MBA and the why now, those are kind of general questions that you should be able to ask before you even figure out what programs you're interested in. But once you get started on your application, every school is going to want to know, why do you want to be at their particular school? What is it that resonates about their offering and you can really connect with? So I call this finding your place. I really encourage my clients to go, if possible, visit schools, engage with students, watch what's going on as students interact with one another, as students interact with professors. So I think about there being kind of 4 C's to finding your place, things you should be thinking about. The first is curriculum. Does this school offer curriculum that aligns with your goals? So if your goal is to get into a retail rotational program at Amazon, what is the curriculum that's going to fit to get you from where you are to where you want to go? Perhaps there need to be some some classes that you take in the technology space, classes on effective supply chain management and operations. So think about, as you look at schools, are there concentrations or majors that you may need to focus on? Alternatively, a school like Booth really touts their flexible curriculum, where you can dabble as you wish to put together the curriculum that fits your needs. Very important for you to be thinking about in terms of what knowledge you need to develop and whether or not the curriculum exists. And beyond the curriculum, perhaps there's a professor who's doing some cutting edge research in an area that's of interest to you. That kind of falls into curriculum as well. The next C that I talk about is clubs. And I put clubs only because that's the C word, but within clubs, I would refer to any experiential learning opportunities, case competitions, seminars, speaker series, spring break trips, global experiences that you might have. What are the opportunities outside the classroom that provide you with the opportunity to develop your skills and your knowledge and build relationships in a low-risk environment where you're testing what you've learned in the classroom? These are important things, and it might be, the clubs, some of them will be professional. So, if, for instance, you have an interest in getting into the media space, does that particular school offer a media and entertainment club where there's critical mass of students and even alumni who you can tap into? Or, perhaps your passion is tennis. Does the school have a tennis club that you could go out and play when you have downtime? These clubs offer you an opportunity to be you, and also offer an opportunity for you to test your leadership skills on something that you're passionate about. Maybe you're a soccer player. Perhaps you can be the captain of the soccer team and organize that club. Great opportunities. The next C I refer to as community or culture. And this is, what is the feel of this school? Is it a school that really emphasizes teamwork and collaboration, or is it a culture where everyone needs to fend for themselves and you're all, everyone for themselves as a leader? What's important to you in terms of that community? Where do you thrive? And these are good things you can read all the blogs you want, but visiting a school can give you a way better sense of what that culture is like. For example, if you are in perhaps a remote area for your MBA program, your friend group is probably going to be just people in the MBA program. Whereas if you're in a large city, there are probably people in your class who will be kind of commuters. What environment is right for you? And the last C I refer to as connections. And this is really what informs what you know about the curriculum, the clubs, and the community or culture. So reach out to students, reach out to alumni, engage with admissions staffers to find out whether or not the curriculum, the clubs, and the community are right for you. Talk to industry leaders, talk to people in your industry. What do they think of the schools? So just keep engaging with people, reading blogs, making those campus visits, because that's going to inform your why Stanford or why Ross, which again, it may not be as explicit as on the Stanford application where that is one of their essay prompts and has been for a while, but inevitably, if you are invited for an interview, you will be asked, why do you want to be at our school? And the answer needs to be not just what you can take from that program, but what you bring, not just during your 2 years there, but beyond. I do have a question here from Alok. The question is, and actually this goes back to the last slide. So you know what, Alok, I'm going to answer that at the end because I apologize, I did not see it before I moved on to this slide. So again, finding your place in the right school for you is very important. So how can Stratus Admissions Counseling help? So honestly, we don't know until you start the conversation. I've been doing all the talking for the last 30 minutes or so. here are some things that we do know. Last year, AGAC, which is the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants, did a survey, and they discovered that less than 20% of successful MBA candidates did their applications on their own. That means that 80% of people had help on their applications. That's the people who got into school. Clients who start early are more likely to get accepted. I've been working with some clients for more than a year, and they're applying this year. They've really spent the time to answer those questions about why an MBA and why now, and some of them have kind of put off the now because it wasn't the right time. On our Stratus team, we do have counselors who have MBAs from all the top 20 programs. Amongst our team, we have decades of mentoring, coaching, and admissions committee experience, and diverse experience across industries and functions. And our counselors really work together as a team to support our clients through the process. And we have a special offer for those of you who are here with us today on the webinar. We do offer, and this is a new offering for us, an MBA Strategy and Fundamentals package, and we're offering $100 off of that package. It really helps you get to the answer of why MBA, why now. We walk you through introspection exercises. We help you put together your school list based on what it is you're trying to achieve through an MBA. So call 646-690-7369 or email us at consult@stratusadmissions.com. Mention this webinar, or if you want to just go on our website, you can type in the promo code YMBA, and this offer is going to be good through the end of this month. And we do offer a 30-minute consultation, so we'll talk to you about your profile and get a sense of who you are, where you stand in the application process, and how we can help you to move forward. So with that, I am going to open it up to questions, and I've put up on your screen where you can see this as a quote from a client I worked with this past year, saying that when she started the application process, I knew I wanted to do an MBA, but had trouble communicating why and what specific role I'd be angling for after graduation. The Stratus introspection exercises, along with my counselor's expert guidance, dramatically clarified my post-MBA career goals, which in turn allowed me to identify programs that had the best fit. I believe everyone should engage in this process before making such a large financial investment in their future. And an MBA really is a financial investment in your future. You're going to, in most instances, walk away from a job, give up your income for 2 years in the hopes of having something new and better moving forward. So in order to make that successful, you really need to invest in the process. So with that, I want to thank you for joining us. I am going to do some Q&A here. Once the webinar ends, there will be a survey. I would appreciate you filling that out for us to give us some feedback and see how we can help you. And with that, I'm going to just go through some of these questions here. Get back up to the beginning here. All right. Manoj, I'm really sorry. You asked to see the last YMBA slide. Beat the GMAT will be sending out a link to the entire webinar, so you can go back and look at it. And Dale, you asked the same thing. You missed the first 12 minutes, but possibly to review at the end, you will get a recording of this webinar for the future use. Ricardo wants to know, I took the GRE. Is there some sort of GRE target score I should achieve for top business school? Great question, Ricardo. Virtually all MBA programs now are test agnostic in that they will take either a GRE or a GMAT. In terms of a target GRE score, there is a conversion calculator that you can look for if you were to Google GRE to GMAT calculator. Put your scores in there and it'll give you ballpark of what approximately your GMAT score would be. So you're going to want that translated score to be within the 80% range of the schools that you're looking for. All right, hopefully that helps. If you have any other questions, Ricardo, do reach out. Matthew, I answered your question before. Alok wants to know, This is with regard to recommendations. He moved to a new job because of some inevitable conditions. In that case, he cannot ask for a recommendation. What am I supposed to do? Virtually all business schools offer a optional essay where you can explain why you chose the recommenders you chose. So if your current manager is not writing your recommendation, that's an area that we work on with our clients on writing the explanation as to why you're not using your current manager and why you did pick the people you did pick. And Katrin wants to know about the cultural differences between INSEAD and LBS. That's a great question for us to ask. And Katrin, why don't you reach out and see if we can schedule you for a consult? We can get you with one of our counselors who is familiar with those European programs. And another question from Naved. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Do you focus on top business schools outside of the US too? Absolutely. We've had clients get into LBS, to Oxford, INSEAD, HEC, IESE, Cambridge, a lot of the European programs. Ricardo, I think I already answered your question about GRE. Do reach out to us and we can have a further conversation about why taking the GRE might be right for you, or if it would make more sense for you to take the GMAT. A question about applying to the, I'm guessing, INSEAD Singapore. It's the same process, I believe, as applying to INSEAD in Paris. It's same admissions process, and you would just select that you want to be in Singapore as opposed to in the French location. Lots of essays there, and very worthwhile for you to take time, take a step back, and understand why you want an MBA and why you want it now. INSEAD has a very comprehensive set of essays. I think it's 7 essays, and we definitely can add value there as you work through those. Alok wants to know, how far do you think a 2-year international work experience can play a role in getting into Duke's MBA program with a 650 score? That's a great question, Alok. I encourage you to reach out and sign up for a consult so we can talk to that specifically in terms of which Duke program and whether it's 2 years of international work with, if that's all the work you have, or if you have 2 years international and then additional work beyond that in your home country. We have another question here about a 4 years work experience, 3 years employment, and then 1 year of a startup. Will the startup be considered as work experience? Absolutely. There's a lot of learning that goes on in doing a startup. And I give an example in a webinar I was doing just a week or so ago about a client of ours who worked for 3 years in investment banking, 2 different firms, left to go start his own company, which failed within 18 months, and then moved on to a new leadership role in kind of obscure agriculturally based company. And a little bit of jumping around, which is not always well received by admissions committee, but he was really able to connect the dots between all the different roles and why he transitioned when he did. And what he was able to present was that each job change he made, he was getting out of his comfort zone, taking a risk, and developing new skills and knowledge. And because of that compelling narrative that we were able to help him put together, he is now a first year at HBS. I do not encourage you to leave your job and do a startup just because a startup's going to look better on your resume applying to business school. You really need to be able to connect it to your goals and to your previous work. Dale wants to know, is it really not achievable to move from IT to strategy consulting? It is achievable. You need to connect the dots, Dale. It is totally doable. It might not be a direct trajectory. There might be a step in between where you do IT consulting en route to being a strategy consultant. But in the examples I was giving of ones where applications went on that fast path to the ding pile, they did not put the compelling story together of how they were going to get from being an IT consultant to doing strategy consulting. Question about the type of companies that you work for, being small companies. Will it impact their application to the top business school? Not necessarily. It's in a small company, perhaps you've been able to do more things, make a bigger impact. These are all pieces that we can put together in your narrative. You don't necessarily have to have worked for Microsoft or Apple. And frankly, in some of those roles, you may not have had access to senior leadership as you would in a smaller company where you might be working on special projects. I've got a couple questions about recommendations. You typically do not submit letters of recommendation. Each school, almost all schools, will require 2 recommendations. And what happens is you put in the email addresses of the people who you want to write a recommendation, and they are sent a link to a form that they're going to fill out. There is virtually no value from getting academic recommendations from teachers you had during your undergrad. Those are not well received by admissions committee. Question about a 1-year MBA, because the ROI, we absolutely work with people on this. 1 year, a lot of the European programs are 1 year, and we also have worked with quite a few candidates who are doing kind of mid-career 1-year programs, such as MIT Sloan Fellows or the Stanford MSX program, USC IBEAR. There are quite a few out there. We do help our clients to find the best program, regardless of whether it's a part-time program, an executive program, a 2-year program, or just a typical full-time program. Question again about recommendations. Do you get more weight with more recommendations? Absolutely not. If a school asks for 2 recommendations, they don't want more than 2. You only give them the 2. Matthew, great question. Does being a Native American help with M7 chances? Absolutely. Reach out to us. There's a great article on our website on applying as part of consortium, which helps underrepresented minorities apply to business school. And we can absolutely talk to you about that. There are great fellowships and opportunities for people who are Native Americans, Hispanic Americans, African Americans. In terms of, schools want these individuals because they're underrepresented. Question about 7 years work experience across multiple sectors. Will a 1-year MBA suffice? Depends on what you want to do. Give us a call, write in, and we'll do a free consult and talk to you about kind of what your goals are. Let's see. Dale, I'm going to ask you to write in because you've got a couple of specific questions that I'm not sure I totally understand here, and it'll be easier for one of our counselors to answer in real time. And Kavithya hasn't been working due to childcare. How will that reflect on admissions? It depends on what you have been doing. Really, admissions committees are going to want to see that perhaps there are situations where you can't work. Are you perhaps volunteering? What are you doing with your time? Reach out to us, have a conversation. You don't necessarily need to have paid employment to be developing skills and knowledge that would be of value to a business school. And I think Kavithya, do reach out because I think I want to make sure I understand your situation. We can provide you really specific advice. And I think we are wrapping up on questions. I'm not seeing any more coming through. We got one more. Commander in the military. Thank you for your service, Aaron. I appreciate that. Is it considered as leadership experience or community service? It's a little bit of both, and many business schools kind of put those two in the same bucket of looking at your leadership and community service. Aaron, do reach out to us. One of our counselors went to West Point, and we love to work with military and former military and helping them translate their experiences in serving our country or another home country to business school and looking beyond that. So there's actually, if you look on our YouTube channel, there's a webinar we did back in January specifically for folks like yourself who are considering a transition to an MBA as a stepping stone out of the military. Alok's asking about Toastmasters experience and leadership section. It depends on what you have done with Toastmasters. Just being in Toastmasters is not leadership, but if perhaps you are the membership chair and you have some quantifiable results about how you've grown your Toastmasters chapter, that could be great. I've read some great Toastmasters essays, and during my time in admissions, I saw a lot of people who had Toastmasters on their applications, but it wasn't anything more than a check the box. I go to these meetings and I spend time, and they weren't able to translate it into how it adds value and why it's important to them as part of kind of the package they bring to a business school. All right, we are coming up on the hour. I appreciate everyone joining us today. Please do take a couple minutes to fill out the survey at the end. It's really super quick. And I wish you all the best on your MBA journey. Please do reach out to us, consult@stratusadmissions.com to schedule a consultation. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.